Now most people make big compost for their garden, but in this experiment we're just going to make a small compost in this jar so that we can look at it day by day and observe changes that happen. So here I have some food scraps, leaves, grass, and some soil. We're going to mix these things together into the jar to make the compost. So I'm going to put the food scraps in here. And notice that these are vegetable and fruit scraps. It's plant material. And then I'll put some of my leaves in here and the grass. And then we'll put in the soil. Now we need to make sure that we only fill this no more than halfway. Looks like we could put in our last leaf and food scraps. And now we need to add some water. And mix it all up. Let's add a little bit more water to this. I want to kind of bury that leaf. All right, now what we need to do is put the lid on, and we need to watch what happens. Now, of course, in things like this, we aren't going to see a change right away. We're going to need to watch it day by day to see the change happen. So let's take a look at this tomorrow. So it's been one day. Let's take a look at our compost. Can you see any changes that have occurred? Well, if we look at the bottom of the jar, we can see some food scraps that have been buried. And if you look at them, you can see that the carrot peel is starting to look a little bit transparent. Starting to be a little bit see-through. So this compost is beginning to decay, but we can't see a whole lot of change today. Let's come back and look at it again tomorrow. All right, it's been another day. Let's look at our compost. Now, can you notice any changes? Well, the grass and the leaf look like they're starting to soften. And then there's something else that we can notice about this. There are tiny water droplets on the leaf down here. Now, why would that be? Well, remember how we watered this and stirred it up? Well, as time passed, the water, some of that water, evaporated into the jar, and then it condensated. And you can see little droplets of condensation up here. Well, then after condensation occurred, precipitation happened, and some of the water went down, back down, and fell on the bottom of the jar. So you can see tiny water droplets. Well, all of this matter in here is beginning to soften. It's beginning to decay. If you look down here, you can still see our buried food scraps. And they're beginning to very slowly decay and give their nutrients back to the soil. Remember, this is a very slow process. So let's look at this again tomorrow. So here we have our compost again, and this is the last day we're going to be observing it. So look closely. Can you see any changes that have occurred? If we look down here at the bottom, you can see that these look even more soft because they're beginning to decay and they're beginning to release their nutrients back into the soil. And up here, even the leaves are starting to change their texture as they decay. So what have we learned by doing this experiment? Well, we've learned that we can use garbage, food scraps, or yard clippings to make compost, which we can use to make the soil in our gardens healthier. And we've also learned that the process of these things decaying can take a very long time. This process of decaying is a very slow process. But over time, these leaves will decay more and more, and these food scraps will decay more and more until they return back into the soil. And they'll become part of that humus, that dark, rich part of the soil that's so good for plants.